Translation and adaptation of the original video for English-speaking audience was made by Dmitry of MG Owners Australia. All rights to the original content belong to Клубный Сервис Channel, and the links are provided in the description of this video. As we are still waiting for Chery Omoda 5 to be officially revealed in Australia, today we will keep watching Ilya from Клубный Сервис Moscow as he disassembles Chery Omoda 2022 model, sharing his very pointy and unbuttered impressions. You gotta love it. Ladies and gentlemen, not that long ago I have promised you an excursion into the wonderful plastic Chinese world of a wonderful new car Chery Omoda 2022. So today I would like to look at its insides, and I'm sure a lot of you out there would be interested to watch this, I'm looking for a better word here, autopsy, if you forgive my crude Russian humor. Spoiler alert, when you disassemble a car, you have to open the doors first, so let's open it up and take a look. You can see straight away some intricate Chinese solution around the door reinforcement, as they didn't use the standard tubular reinforcement and instead these bent flat sheets kind of stuff. Slight positive is that they have two of those in each front door. In the rear doors, we have a slightly different construction, where we see the top reinforcement is kind of thin and rather small, and the lower one looks a little bit, fortunately, sturdier. But there is an empty space in between the kind of outer surface of the door and the reinforcement, filled with some suspicious foam. Oh well, like, look, it's probably just a sealant, don't panic. I'm just reminding everyone that I'm not posing as an expert. I am just like a Russian car service station worker, but I personally prefer tubular constructions here in reinforcement, as typically they are more solid. Go figure, it's just physics, my friends. Let's talk about safety. Chinese car makers approach safety in different ways. Here, particularly using a couple of strong reinforcement bars on the floor that you can see here, as this pair of 1 and 2 are close to the middle pillar kind of the car, this dividing line, and this whole junction, let's call it, is what secures the safety of the passengers in case of a side collision, in spite of the weirdly mazed reinforcement of the front doors. As you can see, the car, my friends, is now fully disassembled, and when we take these cars for disassembly, we offer the owners of the cars a free gift that they can take from us in return. And the owner of this car very sensibly, and I have to say predictably, decided to take our custom sound isolation. As in all honesty, all these little kind of standard mats, I suppose, and insets in the doors are not going to do a very good job. And speaking broadly, I can tell you that, as in many other budget Chinese or even Korean cars, standard factory-made sound insulation is absolutely insufficient and needs to be done separately if you want proper driving comfort for yourself and for your family. If you take a look here, my friends, you will see the electric wiring of this vehicle, and honestly, I saw better and more, let's call them, interesting solutions coming from China even. As looking at this, I can't help but feel that they started putting it all together when the situation with isolating tape in China was far better than when they have finished this whole wiring. Quite clearly, we're looking at some state of deficit, don't you think? Honestly, nobody, really nobody, is doing things this way anymore. If we look at the quality of these plastic clips and wiring tie-ups, as we carefully took it off kind of for the first time to disassemble the car, no doubt that all of this is done by the manufacturer to last only once and to be discarded, but not for reuse, I can tell you with confidence. If you are a particularly safety conscious driver, I don't recommend looking at the fifth door, how it's put together, as there is absolutely no reinforcement, my friends. No reinforcement whatsoever. But if you think about it, you kind of probably don't need to worry about it too much, and that's what people at Omoda must have thought about at Chery, because nobody's sitting there right by the fifth door, right? Still, a very interesting Chinese solution, clearly trying to save a little bit, cutting corners on steel, probably. When I reviewed this car in the previous video, I've pointed out this kind of red strangeness to you, all these red trimmings, naturally thinking that it's some kind of paint work, I suppose. But the sad situation here, it's actually quite different. Take a look, and I guarantee you've never seen anything like this before. As to implement something like this, the designer needs to experience some kind of, forgive me, issues, and probably needs to go see a doctor, I dare suggest, but I'm not a medical specialist. But this is where relative visual appeal meets madness, my friends, and we're seeing a perfect example of it right here. So this is a spare wheel, and it's fully black, by the way, without any red parts in it. Plastic is what we're looking at. So this is plastic, and it's placed as part of an alloy wheel center. There we have a couple of holes for the bolts to fit in. So you can imagine that all of this gets fitted together, and it will not work particularly well as a construction in any extreme conditions, such as snow, sand, mud, just wet conditions, you name it. A long time ago, my kids, my friends, were little, and I remember going to a toy store and buying them some toy cars that looked technically, well, quite similar to this, but obviously they didn't need to take those cars for a drive, didn't they? Another quite interesting thing to continue looking at here, in the first video about Chery Omoda, I spoke about this wireless charger block that has some weird leather on it that is actually quite pleasant to touch. So I decided, just because of that pleasant touch, I decided to take it out and take a closer look at it in case there was something particularly interesting. So this leather-like surface is actually, believe it or not, fitted, well, reasonably nicely, and it's glued to the plastic underlay underneath. Can't say if it's glued particularly badly or anything like that. I think it's actually all right. Not particularly neatly done, but who cares, as the actual wireless charging block is fitted quite nicely, and this is what it looks like. It is quite well fitted. There are a few screws that are going in here, and it's roughly of an iPhone in size, in case you're really interested in this kind of stuff. I do realize that so far I sound rather negative about this car, so I had to actually look for something good to say, genuinely good to say about Chery Omoda, and I really found something finally very good to point out to you. Well, they are using quite good quality plastic, believe it or not. Take a look at this soft, quite bendy, and not really breaking plastic. My team here told me that as far as this plastic is concerned, it was quite a pleasure to disassemble. But clips and fittings are a different story. So let's talk about the interior surfaces, leather seats, panels, and all of that kind of stuff. What's leather like? We are seeing here a very interesting approach where they're using multi-layers. So the first layer here is pretty much, well, what looks like rough felt to me. It looks all right, actually. I don't mind it too much. And it's glued together into this kind of felt and rubber construction. Well, here we can see how these sheets are glued together if you look a little bit closer here with me and the camera. So you think that it would be enough, right? But apparently not, because we have also a second layer, which is looking quite clean and for some reason glued through with what feels like cellophane. I don't know. And obviously when you would sit inside of the car and kind of look at the interior and especially at the floors, obviously you will see this much more pleasant surface. Plus, so what is the plus of this? I think it's if you damage this layer, for example, spill something really bad, you could probably cheaply buy a replacement. Throw this one out, and boom, you have a clean car floor, yet again with not too much trouble. Well, minuses are in this multi-layered construction not being very effective at sound insulation, because we do that a lot here, so we know what we're talking about. And also, I doubt that it would allow for any natural air circulation. So dear friends from company Chery, I know you probably are not very happy with me, but I've shown your product honestly and I called it for what it is without trying to be particularly nice, buttering things up, but neither was I unfair. And I have to summarize that on kind of the balance of all things, I apologize, but I do not like what I'm saying, because technical solutions in this car are not really causing any excitement. Instead, it's more of an amazement of how did you come up with such a thing, honestly. Thank God I'm not an expert or a paid reviewer, as if I was one, I would have to praise this, wouldn't I? But as a potential buyer or a service person, you know, I could buy this car theoretically. I personally would not have been satisfied with this, as the whole construction is simply weird, and I have shown you quite a lot of it. And yes, I could go right now and talk to you about the engine, turbine, and so on and so forth, but I won't, for one very simple reason, because you've seen all of that on my channel many times before, as most parts, plus minus, I guess, are quite standard here for budget Chinese vehicles. They're quite boring and not worth your while. Pricing is everything, my friends. Have you seen the TV show Price is Right? Well, here I dare say price is wrong, as something that is cheaply made can be priced cheaply and still sell well. But these costs, once again, I'll remind you, 40,000, almost 40,000 American dollars, in Russia at least, which is very expensive, too expensive. Chery could fix this situation by being a lot more reasonable with pricing of this car for its release in other countries, including Australia in 2023, if they go ahead with it. So let's remind ourselves very quickly that this car does not even have independent suspension at the back, and I still remain amazed how could anyone in their sane mind fork out such an obnoxiously large amount of money for this kind of vehicle. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the translation prepared by Dmitry from MG Owners Australia. If you enjoyed this, if you want more of these kind of videos, your likes count for a lot. Please give me a like and leave a comment down below if you have your own opinions and if you would like more of this content, because that is the main way for you to tell me that you are enjoying what I've been doing lately in the early 2023 on our channel. Thanks again for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Talk to you next time.